11 things you need to know when you are buying an Indian harmonium. What is a good harmonium and where can I buy a good harmonium? I know as a starter this can be quite a riddle, so how can you know for certain you are buying a good harmonium for a decent price? If you follow my advice here, you will most probably end up with a good buy for your money. A few things I need to mention. In this video, I will describe everything as if you are buying the instrument online and are having a live video chat with the seller. That is what I advise. Make contact with the seller, have a little video chat. The seller will most probably do this. So I describe everything. Every question I recommend asking you, the seller, to do certain things. If you are lucky to have a shop quite nearby, I prefer you go to the shop because it's always nice to play on a harmonium, feel the instruments, compare instruments. That is always preferable. Now, the advice in this video is given in order of importance. So the first point being the most important, the last points being least important. What you should do as well is take all the 11 points in proportion with each other. And perhaps most importantly to decide is the price. Make a considered decision based upon 1. Your specific needs, 2. The price, and 3. The positive versus negative points. Here we go. First on the list, do I need a scale changer? The first decision you will have to make is, do I need a scale changer? Harmoniums with a scale changer can be doubled as expensive as a harmonium without a scale changer. Usually harmoniums with scale changers are, let's say, more than $1,000. Without scale changer, you can find good harmoniums around $650. So to know the answer to this question, you will have to ask yourself another question. How will I use my harmonium? Is my goal in the near future to play with other people, other musicians? If the answer to that question is yes, I would recommend you to buy a harmonium with a scale changer. Reason being that you want to be able to adapt easily when others ask you, to play a certain song a bit higher or lower on the spot. Say, you are playing a certain song and the other singers cannot reach some, high notes. They might ask you to play the song a bit lower. Another example could be a guitar player joining you and he knows a certain song you are playing, but he always played that song in A, while you, for example, play the song in G. So in order to play together, one of you have to adapt. Now you could do that easily with a scale changer. You can quickly adapt. Just move the scale, like this, and you can go a bit lower or a bit higher. So this is a scale changer. If you wouldn't have a scale changer, you would need a lot more experience to adapt changing the key and the chords of the song. Now, if you just want to play harmonium on your own, even with other singers or other musicians, but no, let's say without musicians but other singers, my advice is to you, you don't need a scale changer because you will end up with a much cheaper harmonium, often a one-piece model like this one, which has my preference, and I will explain this to you later. Point 2. What about the price of the harmonium? If all points which I will cover in this video are checked and the price is fine, you can safely buy it. Now, if one or more points are not 100% alright, but you still want to buy the instrument, you could explain that to the seller. Ask for a discount perhaps. You want to also consider the extra taxes or additional customs fees when you are importing the harmonium from abroad. You can find more about that, your country-specific custom fees. Often the seller might know a lot more and has more experience in this matter, but it's always a good idea to double check online. 3. Count the sustain of the harmonium. What is very important to find out for a harmonium is the sustain, meaning how long the harmonium holds the air pressure. A good harmonium keeps the air well and has no air leaks. This will result in a more direct sound when pumping and a longer sustain when you stop pumping. So the harmonium will continue sounding longer. A bad harmonium will lose air and the harmonium will react slower on your pumping. So here's a test to find out how well the sustain of the harmonium works. Ask the seller to play a chord in an average volume. Ask to stop pumping and immediately start counting until the harmonium stops making sound. A good harmonium should continue about 4 seconds or more. A poor harmonium will be sounding less than 4 seconds. Now, really bad is around 2 seconds, you could say. Now, you should try this a few times with a low chord and a higher chord. Low notes will consume much more air, so they will always have a shorter sustain, and higher notes consume less air, so they will always sound longer. But you want to check both and the average reverberation. So if, for example, the low notes last almost 4 seconds and the higher notes last for 6 seconds, then the harmonium is excellent. Now, but if the low notes of the harmonium last for 2 seconds and the higher notes barely 3 seconds, then the harmonium is not of a great quality. It will be much more difficult to play on. The harmonium will sound sloppier, slower, and it will be harder to get an even continuous sound. If the harmonium holds the air well, it will be easier to play accents and a greater variety of dynamics. For example, a high chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the sound disappears. 1, 2, 3, 4. More than 4. So 4. Are the bellows making crackling sounds? This is something I wasn't aware when I was buying my first harmoniums, like 15 years ago. The bellows are made of some kind of special cardboard and are reinforced on the sides with some protection. Now, due to the glue, sometimes the bellows can make a little crackling sound. My first thought when I was buying my first harmoniums was that this sound might have something to do with the harmonium being new from the factory, and it would disappear after a while, after some time, when you play on it, and it will disappear. But reality is that even playing very often for more than 15 years now, still this crackling didn't go away. So how can you test the bellows for any crackling sounds? Ask the seller to hold his phone quite close to the bellows and that he can just play one note in a soft volume. Then ask to open the bellows fully so the entire bellows are being used when playing. And now don't tell him exactly the reason why you're asking this, as he might try to avoid making the crackling noises. So then listen carefully. If you do not hear any crackling sounds, obvious crackling noises, when playing softly, it is all fine. It should be quite obvious. 5. Squeaky or buzzing notes. Ask the seller to play all keys separate and not too fast. All keys should make a normal sound, more or less equal in volume and tone. So this, for example, this note is sounding less than the other ones. So then you should check the reed. What you want to avoid here are notes that sound squeaky or buzzing. Sometimes the key may not produce any sound at all. If so, take this into account. You might want to ask if they can repair this before buying. Usually it's not a difficult fix. It could be due to some dust or the metal particles, inside the harmonium, and it might be blocking the metal reeds from sounding normal. So cleaning or vacuuming it or straightening the reeds sometimes also inside may fix this issue in an easy way. The seller could also replace a problematic reed with a new reed. It's only a matter of 2 little screws. 6. Clicking sounds of the keys. Now ask the seller to hit the keys with a decent force when playing in a rhythmical way. Often harmoniums have the tendency to sound a bit plasticky or and clicky. So the sound of the harmonium should mask the clicking of the keys. 7. Transportability. Can I transport and easily carry the harmonium? Can it fit in my car? What is the weight and what is the size of the harmonium? You should ask all these questions. Now, there are 2 main differences in harmonium models: a suitcase model or a one-piece model. Let it go. And you can carry it like that. Levers here, carry it like this. Right? My preference goes to the one-piece model because experience has learned that more often than not it holds the air better than a suitcase model. A suitcase model, which allows the harmonium to be folded, collapse inside a protective box, has a lever to carry, is of course handy for transport. But on the other hand, it will lose air more easy than a one-piece model, and it will have a shorter sustain. So in case you're planning to travel a lot with harmonium, I would advise you to buy a suitcase model. If you won't be traveling so much and just leave the harmonium in one place, I recommend you buying a one-piece model because they usually have a better sustain and air tightness. 8. Sticky notes. When the seller, is playing the keys separate, one by one, see and make sure if some keys are sticky, if they are closing slowly or do not close at all. So what does that mean? When you stop pressing a key, the sound should stop immediately. Sometimes this is not the case, and the key is not closing well. Mostly this is due to the wood of the key creating friction on the sides of the keys, which can easily be repaired by sanding the key a bit with some sandpaper. It's easy. Sometimes it's only a bit of dust underneath the end part of the key where there's some filth and where there's a little opening where the air releases. So when you release a pressed key, the end upper part of the key with felt underneath should entirely close the little opening where the air escapes. If the key is not closing well because of some dust particles, the sound will not stop entirely when you release a pressed key. If a harmonium has this issue, it can also come in time. You can fix this easily, mostly. So normally this shouldn't be a problem. It can be fixed. But if the seller says, no, it's difficult to fix or whatever, then don't buy the harmonium. So if it cannot be fixed, it will only be a source of frustration in the long run. So I advise you not to buy the harmonium. 9. Tuning. How is the tuning of the harmonium? You should always ask for a tuning service before sending and buying. Ask the seller to hold a tuning device next to the harmonium while playing the key of A. Check if the harmonium is tuned at 440 Hz, which is the standard pitch, and preferred when playing with other people, other musicians. If it is not entirely 440, this is perfectly alright if you are just playing on your own. In this case, just make sure that all notes are well tuned in relation to each other. You can check this by asking the seller to play octaves, fifths, and chords. And if everything sounds alright, then all is well. But if it sounds really annoying or strikingly out of tune, you should ask for a tuning service before buying. Now, if the seller doesn't provide this service, my advice is not buying the harmonium, right? 10. What is your intuitive feeling? See for yourself, what do your feelings say about this harmonium? Are you enthusiastic? Do you have an attraction towards the harmonium? Does the harmonium make you happy? Or does it not really appeal to you? Are you satisfied with the price, with the sound, with the looks? So when buying a harmonium from a distance online, this is a bit harder to experience. Therefore, it is ideal to buy a harmonium in a physical shop. This makes it easier to compare different harmoniums and then intuitively feel if this is your instrument. 11. The appearance. So for me personally, this point isn't the most important thing, which is why I place this last on the list. For those of you who are looking to buy a first harmonium, the color might be very important, and I understand. But know that you can have a very beautiful, nicely decorated harmonium, which sounds like crap, or the other way around, like a harmonium which sounds and plays beautiful, but looks a bit plain, or it doesn't come in your favorite color. I will tell you, the decision should be easily made. Always prefer playability and sound over color and aesthetics. But of course, if the harmonium is highly priced, the appearance and the color of the harmonium should match your tastes, of course, in order to convince you to buy it. I hope this video might be of your help. I wish you a lot of success in your search for beautiful harmonium. If you are interested and want to know more about the course, the Harmonium Evolution, now please find more information on my website, harmoniumevolution.com. Students of the course always get personal advice, and they can ask their questions to me personally. So check out our website, contact me for a personal 15-minute chat where I can explain more and we can talk about the course more in detail. So I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.